During our usual Sunday family dinner at my parents' house in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia, my younger brother Tyler dangled a shiny new key fob over his plate and grinned like he'd just won the lottery. "Look what I finally picked up yesterday. Brand new Dodge Challenger fully loaded." He tossed the keys so they landed right in front of me with a clink. Then he looked straight at my 12-year-old Honda Civic key sitting next to my phone and laughed. "So, Cassie, when are you ever going to get a new one?" "Still driving that thing from the Obama administration." My dad nearly choked on his beer, laughing, slapped the table, and added, "Girl, you make good money and still roll up looking like a college kid. Gotta loosen the purse strings sometime," Mom joined in, wiping tears from her eyes. "Seriously, honey, you're embarrassing us." The whole table cracked up while I sat there, fork frozen halfway to my mouth. For the last 3 years, I'd been sending Tyler $2,500 every single month, plus co-signed the loan on that exact car to help him get back on his feet after the divorce. I paid for the boys' health insurance, part of their rent, everything. And there he was, flexing a $65,000 muscle car while mocking the sister who'd been keeping his life afloat. I didn't say a word. I just put my fork down, slid my phone under the table, and texted my lawyer Victoria one line: "Do it tonight. Pull everything." The next morning at 7:30, my phone exploded with missed calls. Tyler's name filled the screen, his voice messages already sounding like he was about to cry. If you want to know exactly how fast a brand new Challenger can disappear from someone's driveway when the bank realizes the cosigner just revoked everything, hit that subscribe button and keep watching. Driving home that night through the Atlanta traffic, my mind kept replaying the last 3 years like an endless loop I couldn't escape. I'm a senior project manager at a mid-sized tech firm downtown. The job pays well, low 6 figures most years with bonuses, but I've always lived below my means, 1-bedroom apartment, no fancy vacations, same reliable Civic I bought right after grad school. The extra money was supposed to be my safety net, maybe a down payment on a house someday. Instead, almost all of it went straight to my younger brother Tyler Bennett. It started right after his divorce. Tyler called me crying one evening, said his ex walked out and left him with the boys, and a stack of bills he couldn't handle alone. He was working part-time as a warehouse supervisor back then, barely above minimum wage, and child support was eating him alive. He sent me pictures of my nephews in shoes with holes, told me the landlord was threatening eviction, that the power company had already shut them off once. Every story broke my heart a little more, so I stepped in. The first transfer was $2,000 just to get them through the month. Then it became regular $2,500 every first of the month, wired directly from my account to his. I added the boys to my company health plan because his job didn't offer insurance. When the transmission on his old truck died, I co-signed the loan for the Challenger, told the bank I was helping family rebuild credit. Tyler swore it was temporary just until he got promoted or found something better. I believed him because he's my little brother and family takes care of family, right? He kept the updates coming. Voice messages at 2 a.m. about how one of the boys needed braces I quietly paid for. Emails with past due notices he forwarded so I could call and cover them. Photos of the fridge, half-empty captions like, "Trying to stretch until payday." Every time I asked if he was looking for a better job, he'd say the market was rough, that nobody wanted to hire a single dad with a record of late payments, that he was doing the best he could. I never pushed too hard. I didn't want to make him feel worse. Mom and Dad backed him up every step of the way. Mom Diane Bennett would call and say things like, "Cassie, honey, you're in such a good place, and Tyler's struggling so much. It would mean the world if you could help a little longer." Dad Ronald Bennett would grunt approval in the background and remind me how lucky I was to have a steady career while Tyler had it rough raising 2 kids alone. They made it sound like I was the only one who could keep my nephews from ending up in foster care or on the street. Guilt is a hell of a motivator. Over 36 months, that added up to over $90,000 out of my accounts, not counting the health premiums and random emergencies. I stopped contributing to my own retirement for a while just to keep the transfers going. Friends asked why I never traveled or upgraded my place. I'd laugh it off, say I was focused on work, when really I was terrified that if I missed even 1 month, something terrible would happen to the boys. Tyler always sounded so grateful on the phone, calling me his guardian angel, promising that one day he'd pay every cent back with interest. I saved those messages because they made the sacrifice feel worth it. I never asked for receipts or a repayment plan. I trusted him completely. After all, we grew up in the same house, shared the same parents, survived the same struggles when money was tight. Blood doesn't lie, or so I thought. Sitting in my apartment that night, I opened the banking app for the first time in months and actually looked at the transaction history line by line. The numbers stared back at me like evidence in a crime scene. $92,487 total. And 2 weeks ago, right after the latest transfer hit his account, a single large payment had gone out to the dealership, final payoff on the Challenger, months ahead of schedule. That was the moment the floor dropped out from under me. Every late-night panic call, every tearful thank you, every photo of worn-out sneakers. It all clicked into place. I hadn't been helping my brother survive. I'd been bankrolling a lifestyle he never intended to give up. My phone was already in my hand. I opened the contact for Victoria Hayes, the attorney I'd hired years ago for some contract work at the office, and stayed in touch with ever since. My thumbs flew across the screen. Victoria, it's Cassie Bennett. I need you to revoke the cosign on my brother's car loan and pull every recurring payment linked to him. Tonight, if possible. I'll explain everything tomorrow. Her reply came in under a minute. On it. Sending revocation docs now. Call me first thing. I hit send on the authorization forms, closed the laptop, and for the first time in 3 years breathed air that didn't taste like guilt. By 7:30 the next morning, my phone was already lighting up like a Christmas tree. The first call came from the finance company. The woman on the line sounded almost apologetic as she explained that since the cosigner had revoked authorization overnight, the full remaining balance on the Challenger was now due immediately, and repossession proceedings would begin within 72 hours if payment wasn't received. 10 minutes later, Tyler was blowing up my phone, 27 missed calls before I even finished my coffee. I finally picked up on the 28th. His voice cracked the second he started talking. Cassie, what the hell did you do? They just called and said they're coming for the car. I have the boys with me. How am I supposed to get them to school? I stayed calm and told him the truth. You paid it off 2 weeks ago with money I sent you. I simply removed myself from the title. It's your car now, Tyler. Handle it. He went dead silent for a few seconds, then exploded. You're seriously doing this? After everything you're trying to destroy us? Before I could answer, another call beeped in Mom. I switched over. Diane Bennett was already crying so hard I could barely understand her. Cassie, the bank just froze the rent payment for Tyler's apartment. The landlord left a voicemail saying if it's not paid by Friday, they'll start eviction. My heart can't take this stress, honey. The doctor told me last month any more pressure and I could end up in the ER again. I closed my eyes and took a slow breath. Mom, I'm not paying his rent anymore. That's on him. She gasped like I'd slapped her. How can you be so cold? Those are your nephews. Dad grabbed the phone from her, his voice low and angry. Ronald Bennett here, and you listen to me, young lady. You don't get to pull the rug out from under your own brother without warning. We raised you better than this. I cut him off. You raised me to believe family doesn't lie for years and use people. I'm done being the only one following that rule. I hung up and turned the phone face down. It didn't stay quiet for long. The texts started rolling in faster than I could read them. Tyler, you're literally putting your nephews on the street. Hope you sleep well tonight. Mom, I'm having chest pains right now because of you. Tyler again. Brandon thinks this is insane. He says you need help. Dad, this is unforgivable. You're breaking your mother's heart. Tyler. Pick up the damn phone. Cassie. Brandon Cook, Tyler's boyfriend of the last 18 months, even chimed in with a message I'd never gotten from him before. Hey, not sure what's going on, but Tyler's freaking out. Whatever it is, can you two work it out? For the kids, I stared at the screen and almost laughed. Brandon drove a BMW and paid for most of their dates. Of course, Tyler had painted me as the villain to him, too. By noon, the health insurance company sent me confirmation that the boys were removed from my plan effective immediately. I forwarded the email to Tyler with a single line: "You'll need to enroll them in Medicaid or find coverage through work." His reply was instant and venomous. "You're evil. Actually, evil." I blocked the threads one by one, but the calls kept coming from new numbers. Mom using Dad's phone, Tyler using Brandon's. Every voicemail was another variation of the same theme: I was selfish. I was destroying the family. I was abandoning children who had done nothing wrong. Mom left one that was just her crying and repeating, "How could you do this to me?" until the message cut off. I sat at my kitchen counter staring at the pile of blocked notifications and felt something shift inside me like a weight I'd carried for years, finally sliding off my shoulders and crashing to the floor. The guilt was still there, flickering at the edges, but it was quieter now, drowned out by a much louder voice, asking why I'd ever let them make me feel responsible for their choices in the first place. Around 2 o'clock, the finance company texted me a final confirmation repossession order issued vehicle scheduled for pickup within 48 hours. I saved the message, turned my phone on Do Not Disturb, and went to the office like it was any other Monday. The storm, though, was only getting started. The following afternoon, the intercom buzzed while I was on a work call. I checked the camera and saw Tyler and Mom standing in the lobby, both red-faced and arguing with the front desk. Before I could decide whether to ignore it, security called up asking if I wanted to let my family in. I told them to send them up. Running wasn't going to fix this. The second I opened the door, Mom pushed past me, clutching her chest like she could barely breathe. Tyler followed, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. Mom collapsed onto my couch, one hand pressed over her heart, the other reaching for me. "Cassie, I can't take this," she gasped between dramatic breaths. "My heart is racing so bad right now. The doctor told me last year one more big shock and I might not make it. Is that what you want? Your own mother in the hospital because you're punishing Tyler." Tyler stood over me, arms crossed, eyes blazing. "You think this is funny? The boys have been crying all morning because they heard Grandma might have to go to the ER. You're literally making them watch their grandmother suffer." I stayed standing, arms folded, and kept my voice level. "Mom, if you're having chest pain, I'll call 911 right now. Otherwise, stop using your health to guilt me into paying for choices that aren't mine." Mom's eyes filled with tears that spilled the second she blinked. "How can you talk to me like that? After everything we've done for you, I carried you for 9 months, stayed up nights when you were sick, and this is how you repay me." Tyler jumped in before I could answer. "You know what? If you're so done helping, fine. I'll drop the boys off here tomorrow morning. You can figure out daycare, school runs, doctor visits, all of it. Since you have so much money and no heart, you can be their full-time parent now." He pulled out his phone and started scrolling like he was actually looking up drop-off times. Mom kept moaning softly on the couch, rocking back and forth, murmuring about how her left arm was going numb. I'd seen this performance before, just never aimed directly at me with this much intensity. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed my phone, and dialed building security on speaker. "Hi, this is Cassandra Bennett in 12B. I have 2 visitors who are refusing to leave, and one is claiming medical distress. Can you send someone up? Please?" Mom's moaning stopped instantly. Tyler spun around. "You're calling security on your own mother. If she's really having a heart episode, they'll get paramedics here faster than I can. If she's not, then yes. I'm done listening to threats and drama in my own home." 2 officers showed up less than 5 minutes later. Mom suddenly sat up straighter, color returning to her face like magic. She told the officers she was just upset and didn't need medical attention after all. Tyler tried one last time, voice low and venomous. "This isn't over, Cassie. You'll regret treating your family like this." I looked him straight in the eye. "The only thing I regret is waiting 3 years to stop it." The officers escorted them out. I watched on the lobby camera as Mom leaned on Tyler the whole way to the parking garage, dabbing her eyes for anyone who might be watching. As soon as they reached the car, she stood up straight and started yelling at him about something I couldn't hear. I locked the door, poured myself a glass of wine, and for the first time in days felt completely calm. They had shown up expecting tears and guilt to work like always. Instead, they walked straight into the new boundary I'd drawn, and there was no talking their way back across it. They had one more card to play, though, and they played it dirty. 3 days after the confrontation at my apartment, an email from HR landed in my inbox with the subject line, "Urgent, formal complaint." I opened it in the middle of a client call and felt my stomach drop. Someone had filed an anonymous report claiming I'd been redirecting project funds into a personal account and using company resources for private consulting on the side. The message included screenshots of fake invoices and bank transactions that looked disturbingly real. HR wanted a meeting first thing the following morning. I knew exactly where it came from. Tyler still had my old work email signature saved from years ago when I'd helped him format a resume, and Mom had bragged to half the family about how much I earned. It wouldn't take a genius to piece together a convincing lie. By lunchtime, the second wave hit. My cousin Lauren texted asking if everything was okay, because Aunt Susan had called her crying, saying I'd developed a gambling problem and was drowning in debt. An hour later, Uncle Mark Bennett, Dad's older brother, who I'd always been close to, left a voicemail that started with concern and ended with disappointment. "Your dad says you've been lying to everyone about money troubles. If you need help, kid, just say it." Within 48 hours, the story had spread like wildfire through the extended family group chats I'd been removed from years ago, but still heard about. I was secretly hundreds of thousands in debt from online sports betting. I'd taken out payday loans at insane interest rates. I was one step away from bankruptcy and too proud to ask for help. Mom apparently told my grandmother I might lose my apartment and end up on the street if the family didn't intervene. The phone calls started rolling in from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Cousin Derek asked if he should set up a GoFundMe. Aunt Karen wanted to know if she should talk to Mom about an intervention. Every conversation followed the same script, pity mixed with judgment, all based on information that came straight from my parents and Tyler. At work the next morning, I walked into the conference room with a folder thick enough to make the HR director raise an eyebrow. I laid out 3 years of bank statements, transfer records, and the original co-sign agreement for the car loan, plus the revocation paperwork time-stamped the night of the dinner. Then I showed them the threatening texts and the sudden anonymous complaint filed right after I cut support. By the time I finished, the investigator looked almost embarrassed for having scheduled the meeting. The complaint was dismissed by noon, tagged as malicious. That should have been the end of it, but the family rumor mill only shifted gears. Now the story became that I'd somehow bribed HR to cover up my crimes and was threatening to sue my own brother out of spite. Dad apparently told Uncle Mark that I'd lost touch with reality and needed professional help. Mom started telling people my job was at risk because of my anger issues. I stopped answering unknown numbers and let everything go to voicemail. The messages piled up, relatives praying for me, others offering to loan me money I didn't need, a few outright accusing me of tearing the family apart over greed. One cousin I hadn't seen since high school even messaged to say she was blocking me because supporting deadbeat siblings is a choice, not an obligation. Sitting in my living room that Friday night, surrounded by printed screenshots and recorded calls I'd started saving the moment Tyler showed up at my door, I realized they weren't going to stop. Cutting the money had been the first step. Now they were trying to burn down everything else I'd built on my own. I opened my laptop, created a new folder labeled Evidence, and started dragging in every file I had. If they wanted a war, they'd picked the wrong opponent. Monday morning, I walked into Victoria's office downtown with a thumb drive and a printed stack 2 inches thick. She took one look at the folder and raised an eyebrow. "That's a lot of ammunition." "3 years' worth," I said, sliding it across the desk. "Every transfer, every text, every voicemail. I want my money back, and I want them to stop." Victoria spent the next 2 days drafting. By Wednesday afternoon, 2 certified letters went out. One cease-and-desist order addressed to Tyler mom and dad, jointly spelling out that any further harassment, defamation, or false reports would be met with legal action, and a second letter, a formal demand for repayment of $92,487 in undocumented family loans, complete with bank records and a clear 30-day deadline before we filed in Superior Court. That same afternoon, the repo company towed the Challenger out of Tyler's apartment complex while the boys watched from the balcony. A neighbor filmed it on her phone and posted it to the community Facebook page with the caption, "Guess someone couldn't afford that payment after all?" Within an hour, the video had been shared to every family member who still had me blocked. I waited until the tow truck was gone, then opened the big Bennett family group chat I'd never left, just stayed muted for years and dropped a single message. "Hey everyone, since rumors are flying, I figured I'd clear the air with facts. For the last 3 years I sent Tyler $2,500 every month, plus paid his rent emergencies, health insurance, and co-signed his car loan. Total comes to $92,487. Here are the bank statement screenshots of every transfer and the repayment demand my attorney filed today. The false complaint to my job and the gambling stories are retaliation because I finally stopped. Happy to answer any real questions directly." I attached 10 pages of highlighted transactions and hit send. The chat exploded. Uncle Mark was the first to reply. "Holy hell. Ronald Diane Tyler. What is this? You told us Cassie was the one in trouble." Aunt Karen posted a string of shocked face emojis followed by, "I am speechless. Those poor boys have been used as props." My cousin Jenna, who I hadn't talked to since college, wrote, "Tyler told us last Christmas that Cassie was too cheap to help family. This is disgusting." Within an hour, the tone flipped completely. Relatives who'd been praying for my addiction were now apologizing in my private messages. Uncle Mark called Dad directly and apparently laid into him so hard I could hear the yelling through the walls, when Dad called me afterward screaming that I'd destroyed the family reputation. Tyler tried to defend himself in the chat with a long, rambling post about how I'd promised to help forever, and how the boys would suffer because I was vindictive. Uncle Mark shut him down with one line, "Son, you don't get to steal 92 grand and then play victim." By Friday, the dealership confirmed the car had been sold at auction. Tyler lost the security deposit on the apartment the same week when the landlord kept the money for unpaid utilities I used to cover. Brandon apparently saw the group chat because Tyler posted a tearful status about losing everything because family turned on him, and Brandon's profile picture disappeared from all his socials the next day. Victoria called me that afternoon with a grin I could hear over the phone. They just tried to negotiate, offered $20,000 to make it go away. I told them we'll see them in court if the full amount isn't wired by the deadline. I sat back in my chair and watched the family chat scroll with more messages supporting me than I'd ever imagined possible. For the first time since that Sunday dinner, the weight wasn't just off my shoulders. It had shifted entirely onto the people who deserved to carry it. They thought tears and lies would bring me back in line. Instead, they handed me the perfect case, and the entire family finally saw the truth. The first real crack appeared 3 months after the judge signed the order. Tyler lost the apartment for good when the landlord refused to renew the lease without a cosigner. He showed up at Mom and Dad's place with the boys and whatever fit in the back of a friend's pickup. The basement became their new home, one corner for the kids' air mattresses, another for Tyler's clothes in plastic bins. The house that once hosted big Thanksgiving dinners now smelled like instant noodles and resentment. Brandon walked out the same week. He packed while Tyler was at work and left the key on the counter with a short note. I can't build a future on someone else's past mistakes. Tyler posted a long, angry rant on social media, blaming everyone except himself. Within days, his relationship status disappeared and Brandon unfollowed the entire family. Then the tax auction notice arrived for Mom and Dad's house. I'd been covering the shortfall for years without them ever knowing. Once that stopped, the county didn't wait long. They accepted a cash offer $20,000 below, asking just to avoid foreclosure. The closing took 30 minutes. Mom stood in the empty living room the night before and cried over the marks on the wall where we used to measure our height. Dad stared at the backyard like he was trying to memorize it. They moved into a plain, one-bedroom unit in a senior complex off the interstate, the kind with thin carpet and a shared laundry room that always smells like bleach. Tyler's wages started getting garnished the following payday, 25% gone before he ever touched it. His warehouse cut his hours because the paperwork was a hassle. He picked up night shifts pouring drinks at a sports bar just to keep the court off his back. The boys learned to take the city bus to school because no one had time for drop-offs anymore. Mom tried calling once, voice small and shaky. We're in this tiny place now, Cassie. It's humiliating. Can't you just tell the judge it was a misunderstanding? I let her finish. Then answered quietly. You taught me family looks out for each other. I finally learned the lesson. That was the last conversation we ever had. I accepted the Austin job the same month they moved. Director-level full relocation, enough of a raise that I paid cash for a downtown loft with a balcony overlooking the river. I changed my number the day the movers loaded the truck, blocked every old email address, and drove west without a single goodbye. 2 years later, Victoria sent the final update. Tyler still makes the monthly payment on the 25th like clockwork. Missing one would land him in contempt. Mom and Dad downsized again to a studio after Dad's part-time security gig ended. The boys spend most weekends with their mom now because Tyler works every shift he can get. No one in the extended family mentions the old house anymore. I adopted a dog, started hiking on weekends, took a solo trip to Italy with money that used to disappear into someone else's account. My new friends ask why I never talk about siblings or parents. I just smile and say some doors close so the right ones can open. Here's what I learned the hard way. Love isn't a blank check. Helping family doesn't mean lighting yourself on fire to keep them warm. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're survival. The moment you stop letting people treat you like an ATM with a heartbeat, you find out who actually cared about you and who only cared about what you could give. If someone in your life uses guilt as currency and calls it love, remember this story. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to walk away. Your peace is worth more than their comfort, and your future is not their emergency fund. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for sticking with me until the very end. If anything in this story hit close to home, drop a comment and let me know. Your story matters too. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.